Good morning, Trains Nation. Welcome to another video episode of Trains Newswire Video. Today is Friday, July 29th. I'm Steve.
I'm Brian.
And we're glad you could join us today. Brian, I tell you, every time I think that it's going to be a slow news week by Friday, by this morning, it turns out that I'm just flat wrong, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Now, you've got some fun things, but I wanted to clear out one thing out of the way. We're following some stories out of the Surface Transportation Board. If you are aware of the Surface Transportation Board, they are the economic regulator for railroads based in Washington, D.C. It's a panel of 3 people, and they usually do very little. They announce very few decisions. And we looked at it in all of 2015, they had 9 decisions that they made public. And so far this year, now it's the end of July, they made 8 decisions public,
Wow.
3 of them in the past 3 days. So this is like huge news. We're following that. The one thing is reciprocal switching. Forced switching, the railroads would say. Some people say competitive switching, but they've come down and made a decision that, that railroads will indeed have to, in some point, on a case-by-case basis, switch the customers that are on other railroads' lines. A really big deal.
They
Something
won't
that's
have to switch them on other lines, but they'll have the opportunity to in some
Exactly.
certain cases.
in certain cases,
Yeah.
and the U.S. railroads have been fighting that. But you will see it more commonly in other countries and in Canada, where it's more common. And they also, the Surface Transportation Board also announced that they are switching, or they're changing the metrics for Amtrak on-time performance. It's not just, you know, was it late to its ultimate destination, but they're counting stop by stop. Was the train late to each station? And counting that, and the railroads are kind of against that as well.
So instead of 3 hours of padding to Los Angeles, now you'll have an hour to Kansas City, an hour to Albuquerque, and an hour to Los Angeles.
Well, actually 15 minutes.
Wow.
If a train is later than 15 minutes, it will, at any station stop, it will no longer be considered on time, which apparently is what the airlines use. So now the railroads are going to be judged by airline standards, which is, I don't know, interesting, cool, and weird all at the same time. I'm not sure what this is going to happen, but we're following it, and there's going to be a lot of fallout, I'm sure, in the weeks and months to come. So, but you, Brian, you told me you had some fun things coming, and please get some fun in here.
Fun, yeah. Well, it's hard to be more fun than regulation, but I'll try.
Okay.
So we're actually gonna start with one that's only half fun. There's a
Okay.
winner and a loser this week.
Okay.
For train rides. The loser we'll start with is the
right.
Western Maryland Scenic,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
found another landslip, whatever you want to call it, a couple miles from the one that was earlier this year. And it looks like now they won't run all the way to Frostburg through the end of this season and maybe part of next season. But they're looking at their options to get that done, and this one's been, I guess, a problem for as long as the railroad's been there. This is a known location to them and their engineers, so hopefully they'll get that around. But while you can't ride to Frostburg this year, there's a really neat excursion coming up first weekend in October as part of the Galveston Railroad Days. There's going to be about a 200-mile rare mileage round trip.
200 miles.
200 miles. 100 out and 100 back, just about.
That's amazing.
To go out the old Santa Fe line, kind of goes around Galveston a little bit. It's going to have those Santa Fe painted F units from
War
the Galveston
bonnets?
Museum. Yes. They're not originally Santa Fe
Yeah.
engines. I think they were SP
Still.
at one time. So some people get
little
upset
prickly
about
that,
that.
but they're still war bonnets.
They're war bonnets. They'll be pulling, but more importantly, you can ride this mileage, and it's not one of those mileage trips that costs an arm and a leg and part of a kidney to go.
Right.
But it's going to be a really neat ride, it looks like. What else do I have that's fun? The Center for Railroad Photography and Art.
Oh, I remember this. This is a cool one.
You should remember it. You're the news editor.
Yeah, I know.
So,
but it's cool.
The Center for Railroad Photography and Art has done annual photo contest, and this year they're going to have a special category for cell phone photos, which is pretty cool because it will, railroad photographers, you see them out there with their DSLRs and their big weight Canon lenses, and they think they're really cool. But it's a select group of people, and this will get us, hopefully, some more exposure for railroad photography, to get more people involved, more people pulled into what the center does, which the center does some really cool stuff.
They do.
Yeah.
And I think this is outstanding because most people have some kind of smart device, an Apple, an Android, maybe a BlackBerry, heaven forbid. And you're out there and you don't have time to grab your lens and suit up and get everything ready to go, but you just grab your smartphone and go. And the pixel quality on most smartphones these days is really, really good. So we're glad to see that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to see that.
It'll help, should help out the whole genre of railroad photography. So, and
I think so.
one last thing I wanted to talk about was give a farewell of sorts to Amtrak's Heritage Diners. There's a number of them now have unrepairable frame cracks. Some of these cars are built in the 50s and 40s even, yeah. The last time I rode the Lakeshore was probably 5 years ago, and I was in an old Northern Pacific dining car. But yeah, they're going to temporarily substitute some Amfleet lounge cars as dining service, kind of like the Cardinal has.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of disappointing.
Yeah. So it's on the Lakeshore. It's on the Lakeshore Limited
Lakeshore
now,
Limited,
temporarily until they say they get
Yeah.
new diners in.
Yeah, but the new diners are due by the end of the year, so we'll see how that works out for them once they get them put into service. But yeah, it's disappointing as I don't know that I'd consider a sleeping car trip on the Lakeshore now if if the fares aren't a little bit reduced to make up for not having the normally good
diner.
meal service. Yeah.
Although every time I traveled from Chicago to Erie, they were serving breakfast after Erie, so I never got it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What else do you have for us?
Well, so a couple little things quickly. Denver opened up a new commuter line this week.
the Beeline.
Beeline, which is really good news. New York MTA, Metropolitan Transportation Authority, announced they're going to be closing the Canarsie Tunnel. I think I said that right.
Is that the L line?
The L line.
Yeah.
In New York for 18 months. They're just going to shut it down. Boom. Done.
That's like 200,000 people use that.
A day.
Yeah.
A day. Yeah. So it's a busy line. They're going to shut it down for repairs. Damages that were a result of Hurricane Sandy back in 2012. So they're finally getting to that.
4 years.
Yeah. And they're doing that instead of just well, Diane, we're blowing past the time. Okay. All right. And then Metro, WMATA in Washington, D.C. says that they're thinking of eliminating all overnight service. So any late night past 10 o'clock on Sundays and past midnight weekdays and Saturdays.
I would think you can make up a lot of that with bus service, though, if you extend later evening bus service and save the expense of running the trains all night.
You could do that, but a lot of the trains run in a lot of places more directly than any bus or any route.
Sure.
Would go.
I can't imagine there's a lot of traffic at that hour that you couldn't run a bus down to the interstate or around the Beltway. It is certainly going to be a hardship for people who work, especially like in the entertainment industry or hospitality industry, where you get out
I was going to say that hotels and restaurants,
Yeah.
people serving downtown DC and serving Congress and all the affiliated people, they've got to work, they've got to get to and from efficiently and cheaply, and this is going to really be a pain for them. So.
And you don't think of it when they're going home at 2 a.m., 3 a.m.,
Right.
when the bar or the restaurant, but they've all got to get to work at 5 o'clock for that evening shift, and that's going to be more cars in the evening rush hour for that. So
Yeah, something to watch out for. But you know what it's time for now?
No, but I bet you're going to tell me.
Yeah, it's time for trivia.
Oh,
it's
we
time
still
for
do that?
trivia. Yeah, we still do that. So I was on vacation the past 2 weeks, but you and Jim and David
I think so, yeah.
did trivia well. So last week's question was going back on Newswire from now 2 weeks ago. How many locomotives, how many motive power units did Union Pacific put in storage as of the end of the second quarter?
I'm going to say 12. No?
You'd be off by about 1,688. So
lot
it was
of-
total 1,700 units, 1,700. And many of you responded correctly at the bottom of our page. And the person we chose at random is Charles Rockwell. Charles, if you send your, we have your name, but if you send, again, your name and address to newswire@trainsmag.com, that's newswire@trainsmag.com. Email that into us, your address. We'll be happy to get out whatever it is that Jim promised you last week. I think it was a 20th Century Limited DVD.
And now we're going to have to go back and watch last week's video again to confirm that.
To see what you're promised. But we're going to offer that again this week. 20th Century Limited DVD, exclusive from Trains Magazine. I believe it's about 60 minutes, 65 minutes.
Give or take, I think.
It's narrated by Michael Gross. You remember him from Family Ties. Great stuff. The trivia question this week also comes from Newswire, and that is what railroad announced this week that it has broken its record again for lowest operating ratio?
That's a good one.
That's a very good one. A railroad, it's famous, has some famous letters, has a new record low operating ratio. And it's
A real railroad, not one of the ones from the guys at Model Railroader, but a real railroad.
Right, yeah, and it's not on the island of Sodor. It's a real railroad, so that's good. So what is that railroad? No brownie points for naming the operating ratio, but if you do say that, we'll say that you got that right too. So
If they get it right.
If they get it right.
Yeah.
So post the name of the railroad down below in the comment section below here, or you can send it in the back of a $20 bill to me,
I'll take 50s.
He'll take 50s. And name
I don't
and
do this
address
often enough.
gives you a little bit more extra, oomph, and we'll maybe choose you first. And put that down there, and we'll announce a random correct guesser next week. So now I was on vacation for 2 weeks, and one thing that we did was we visit Cass Scenic Railroad, which was a cool thing. So as we leave today, we just got a couple of seconds of video that my daughter took when we were at the diesel versus steam race at Spruce, West Virginia, up the Cass Scenic Railroad. So that was kind of cool. Hey, she's 14. She's got a steady hand with the iPod video. So maybe she'll submit to a photo contest someday herself. Anyway, for everyone at Trains Magazine, have an excellent weekend.
Hi gang, Jim Wren. Whether I'm in the office or in the field, if I want to learn about my favorite Rocky Mountain railroading, I go to our app, Colorado Railroads.
Trains Magazine now offers the Colorado Railroads app for Apple and Android devices. You can find railroad hotspots, steam excursions, popular railroad eateries, and so much more. Check it out in your smartphone's app store today.